Usually somebody gives me a hint, but it just got quiet all at the same time. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the installation of the Stoddard O'Neill Professorship in Gynecologic Oncology. My name is Andy Satin, and I'm the director and the Dr. Dorothy Edwards Professor of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics here at Hopkins. It is wonderful to see all of you here, and it's terrific to see the room so full, and I have a privilege of welcoming some folks here. First, I want to recognize and welcome Dr. Theodore DeWeese, Dean of the Medical Faculty and Chief Executive Officer of Johns Hopkins Medicine, Dr. Lainey Rutkow, the Provost from the University, and of course, Karen Stoddard and Eileen O'Neill, who've made this professorship possible, and their son Quinn Stoddard O'Neill. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I guess I do have to mention the inaugural Stoddard O'Neill Professor, Dr. Rebecca Lynn Stone, and of course her husband Chris Loso, and Dr. Jerry and Sharon Yuki. Excuse me. It is an honor to have so many family and friends and colleagues of Dr. Stone's here to share in this special day with us. Welcome to you all. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. DeWeese, Dean of the Medical Faculty and Chief Executive Officer of Johns Hopkins Medicine.
Thank you, Andy, very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm very appreciative, by the way, that the room is set up this way. Often it's this way, which is fine too, but sometimes I think people start to mix me up with those guys with the gray mustaches and that. So I really appreciate this angle very much. So whoever did that, thank you for doing so. These are just wonderful days in the life of a Dean and CEO. Some of the days aren't quite as pleasant as this. These are pleasant. When we get to dedicate important professorships, and in this case, as you just heard, the Stoddard O'Neill Professorship in Gynecologic Oncology, and to celebrate its most worthy inaugural recipient, Dr. Rebecca Stone. Becky, hearty congratulations to you. So first, I do want to recognize and thank Dr. Stoddard and Ms. O'Neill for your vision to make this happen, for making this day possible, and your vision and belief in Dr. Stone, someone who has and will continue to make really important advances as we think about ovarian cancer, as we think about its education and prevention. And what you've done by helping to support Becky will be a lot of patients that you'll never know and see that you will have directly impacted yourself. So thank you on behalf of all of us and all of them. I think as everyone in this knows, Becky is an absolute national leader in ovarian cancer prevention and education. I remember, some time ago, learning when you were, I think I was at some event, I can't remember, maybe in the cancer center somewhere, and hearing about the Outsmart Ovarian Cancer campaign, which I just love the name, to Outsmart Ovarian Cancer campaign. But I don't want to minimize that. The notion of that latter part of her portfolio of education and public awareness of this idea that you could do for women undergoing pelvic surgery, this opportunistic salpingectomy or removal of the fallopian tubes as a way to diminish the risk of developing this disease is not to be minimized. But I would say if you combine that piece with really the more scientific physician side, not the public-facing side, but what you got to do inside the house of advancing the data and the science to move our trajectory to say, yeah, but these high-grade serous ovarian cancers can often start in the fallopian tubes, and therefore, how do you start to change practice of moving towards these salpingectomies? That's hard to do. Getting physicians to do anything is not easy. Getting physicians to do something they haven't been trained to do is harder. And I've watched that for decades inside cancer, and it is a hard thing to do, but it is happening because of persistence, vision, that you bring, Becky. And then when you combine that with your humanity, your humility, your great patient care, that is an important set of attributes that you are contributing to society. And I know the latter to be true because I've had patients, patient family members who've been to you and that you have helped directly. So I know those attributes are true. I hear them, they get sent to me with some frequency about who you are and how you conduct your patient care. But when you put those first attributes together of the science, the advocacy, the education, with the personal attributes, that's the winning hand, how we will ultimately drive to a place of earlier detection and ultimately prevention of a disease that impacts too many women yet around the world. And Becky, you own that, you own a big portion of that, and you are making a serious impact on the world. And so on behalf of all of us and all of those patients, I want to thank you for that. And that's why these endowments actually are super important, because they allow us to recognize leaders like you, Becky, who are the ones we need to recruit, of course, but retain at Johns Hopkins, because you're the shining lights that then attract all those residents and the fellows and the students to you, who then can continue to learn for you, go out and populate the world, but we keep the best ones here to repopulate our faculty. That's why these things matter. But of course, they also matter because while we are here recognizing today Becky and the work she's done, but these live on for generations, well after the life of any of us in this room, and they continue to support the great work of leaders like you, Becky, going forward. So, Karen Eileen, thank you. Thank you for your vision, thank you for your belief in Johns Hopkins, and of course your belief in Dr. Stone. Becky, it's an absolute pleasure and honor for us to recognize you today, your work today, and to be your colleague today. So thank you for that. So as many of you know, endowments are held and administered by the university, so of course we have to formally present them to the university, and that's always a great pleasure. Dr. Recco and I love having these days, as I'm presenting more and more of these. That's a good thing. So with that, Dr. Recco, please join me. Dr. Recco, as the Dean of the Medical Faculty and CEO of Johns Hopkins Medicine, it's a great pleasure to formally present to you the Stoddard O'Neill Professorship in Gynecologic Oncology. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ted. And thank you all for joining us today. It is such a pleasure to be in this room, in this orientation, in this room, with so many colleagues and friends to celebrate such a wonderful occasion for our Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics, and for you, Dr. Rebecca Stone. I'm going to say Becky, but just officially Dr. Rebecca Stone, the inaugural Stoddard and O'Neill Professor of Gynecologic Oncology. And I am particularly delighted to be sharing this moment with Dr. Stone's parents, as well as her husband Christopher, and with Dr. Karen Stoddard and Eileen O'Neill, as well as their son Quinn. So it is now my honor to formally accept the Stoddard and O'Neill Professorship in Gynecologic Oncology on behalf of Johns Hopkins University. So my calendar and all of your calendars say that today is a Tuesday, but I feel like it's a Friday. Why do I feel this way? Is it because it's already been a long week? Yes. No? Is it because I am just racing towards a holiday weekend? No. I blame this woman, Mary Elizabeth Garrett, because for her, the Friday evening, and I'm saying it in quotes, it's intentional, the Friday evening, it was not just a time on her calendar. It meant something. It meant a group of women friends, and many of them, like Garrett herself, were the daughters of founding Hopkins trustees. They met on Friday nights to enjoy intellectual companionship, to discuss their reading, to present short papers to each other, and to debate the ideas of the day. And on one of those Friday evenings, Garrett formed the Women's Medical Fund Committee. It's that committee's determination to translate the innovative ideas that came out of the Friday evening that led to real-world impact that would forever shape not just our School of Medicine, but American medical education writ large. Okay, so today, yes, technically it is a Tuesday, but I hope with that explanation you understand why I feel like that Friday evening spirit envelops all of us right now. As Ted said a moment ago, endowed professorships build mission commitments into the very architecture of this place, and they shape our impact for generations to come. Today's installation ensures that despite sex disparities that do unfortunately reverberate in support for oncological research, despite that, the fight against deadly gynecological cancers will always have a dedicated champion here at Johns Hopkins. Thank you. And what a champion we have. I promise, just a little embarrassing, not over the top. So, Dr. Becky Stone's dedication to advancing women's health and their well-being truly represents the standard of excellence at Hopkins. She's spent a distinguished career working to solve the problem of gynecological cancer from every angle, from early diagnosis to advanced treatment, from the bench to the bedside, and even out into the real world with the work that you've done in public health education and advocacy. And Becky, we can't wait to see what you're going to do next with the support of this professorship behind you. So thank you for your extraordinary dedication and for changing outcomes for patients here in Baltimore, but also because of your research and advocacy, outcomes for patients around the world. So thank you, Becky. And to Karen and Eileen, thank you for ensuring that Becky's work will continue to expand options and change narratives, and most importantly, save lives. I imagine that Mary Elizabeth Garrett would be truly proud to see that that spirit of the Friday evening continues to propel us forward with excellence and bold possibilities. And with that, it's my pleasure to invite to the podium the Reverend Monsignor Richard Bazzelli.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here today. I am Rich Bazzelli. I am currently the pastor of St. Bernardine Catholic Church with historic St. Peter Claver, which basically means I am the Catholic pastor of all of West Baltimore. So from Sandtown, Winchester to Edmondson Village. And I am just delighted to be here to officially introduce, I guess, my two very good friends, Karen and Eileen, although we know Eileen's not going to get up and say anything. I first met Karen and Eileen when I was a brand new pastor at Corpus Christi Church, which is in Midtown, Baltimore. And over the years, the two of them have become much more than just parishioners. In my time with them, I have come to appreciate the generosity that is theirs, a defining part of their lives. And I don't mean just financial generosity. I mean a generosity of spirit that invests in other people. And I've seen that generosity in their family in raising Quinn as well. And I've seen that generosity to their friends and neighbors and communities. Even personally, we've received very much good support from Karen and Eileen with the various outreach programs that we have. We usually always hear from them at Christmas time when we do our Christmas baskets for families in West Baltimore. But again, it's not just financial support. I'll probably get in trouble for mentioning this, but years ago, when I was a brand new pastor, first time, Karen and Eileen had some concerns about the direction of our parish's ministry at Corpus Christi. And while many people would have just walked away, and I would never have known what happened, Karen and Eileen did not. They did something much more generous. They trusted me enough to tell me the truth, and they cared enough to stay and help me grow in my ministry. And that's generosity. And I'm very grateful for that gift. I'm a very different priest today because of their support and their guidance and their direction. When Karen was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she responded with the same generous spirit, not just worrying about herself and Eileen and her family, but also becoming an advocate for ovarian cancer awareness so that her journey might help other women and other families. And today's celebration is the culmination of Karen and Eileen's generosity. It's an expression of their gratitude to you, Dr. Stone, whose extraordinary care and pioneering research has meant so much to Karen and to many other women. And it's an investment of those who will follow you and continue this work. It's an investment in the future. And to me, that's what generosity does. It reaches beyond the present and touches the lives of people we may never know. And what a remarkable legacy, and what a remarkable act of hope. And so it is my great honor to introduce my dear friends, Karen and Eileen, and Karen's going to be the one that gets up.
I cannot tell you how happy I am to be at Johns Hopkins and not be an inpatient. It's been a while. Yeah. Eileen is not the public speaker in our household, not because she cannot do it, because she got her fill of it, I think, when she was still working. So we're going to talk about this wonderful lady behind me. And I am the person who purposely asked that the seats would all be facing Mary Elizabeth Garrett. When I first had my first time in this room, we were, of course, oriented to the founders, but I was sitting right about there, and I kept looking over the fireplace and thinking to myself, who the heck is this woman that she actually gets to be in this room? And so, as we were riding home that night, I was Googling furiously to find out who this person was. And I was so excited and so thrilled to find out the story behind her. As you most likely know, John Singer Sargent, probably the most famous portrait artist of the 19th century, is responsible for both of these wonderful portraits. He remarked that being in her presence made him feel, quote, like a rabbit in the presence of a boa constrictor. It's a little harsh, all right? And she doesn't look that scary. And it's interesting because when the portrait was first presented to her as having been completed, she and a friend looked at it. They were in London at the time, which is where he had his studio, and it was very dark. Like the whole picture just radiated darkness. And so she and the friend went out and bought all the light-colored white and red that you see in this portrait. And they brought it back to the studio and insisted that he had to incorporate that into this portrait. So, good. So she may have intimidated Sargent, but she was a woman of immeasurable vision and fortitude. Her own father, who was the president of the B&O Railroad here in Baltimore, said that she possessed the best business mind in the entire family. And she is responsible for the successful launching of the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine in the Gilded Age of the late 19th century. The Hopkins University trustees ran out of money before the School of Medicine could be built. And the only person of wealth who stepped forward to solve this financial dilemma was Mary Elizabeth Garrett. But her generosity carried several requirements. Among them, that first of all, the medical school had to be a 4-year graduate program, that successful applicants had to actually hold undergraduate degrees that were grounded in the sciences, and they also had to be fluent in French and German. She also insisted that the medical school curriculum had to be modeled on that of European medical universities, which were the standard in the world at the time. And perhaps most controversial and most, well, no, I won't say that word. Well, yes, divisive, that women would be admitted to this not yet built college on the same terms as male students. The stringency of Garrett's stipulations caused Dr. William Osler to quip to Dr. William Welch, and two of them are in the founder's picture, quote, "We were fortunate to get in as professors. We never would have made it in as students." Garrett herself was personal friends with the founders, which is part of the reason those 4 particular doctors wound up in the founder's portrait. She had her painting done first, and she was so happy with it that she offered them the opportunity to travel to London to have their portrait done. She also paid for their trip, which was several weeks long by boat, obviously, and everybody had a good old time. The faculty and the trustees of the university, some faculty, were concerned that Garrett's demands would mean that no students would ever apply to this new school, that the requirements were too hard, and that the new school would fail miserably. They tried to negotiate with Mary Elizabeth Garrett to reduce her demands, but she held insistent. Her so-called coercive philanthropy would be the basis for the very deserved reputation of the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine for pioneering modern medical education in the United States, for being the first genuine research university in the United States, the first medical school in the United States to incorporate bedside teaching methods, and the first genuinely coeducational school of medicine. All of this because of the vision, determination, and abject stubbornness of one woman who herself had been denied the opportunity to attend college. She personally asked President Gilman of Hopkins University if she could attend classes at the university, and he told her no. She did not hesitate to use the power of her purse to bring about genuine social change. Mary Elizabeth Garrett knew that the cultural norms of her era stood in the way of welcoming the abilities of women to function in the medical world as professionals. Every woman in this room today who works in medicine in any capacity is living proof that Mary Elizabeth Garrett was right. Each of you is the embodiment of her dream, and all of us, female and male, are the very lucky recipients of her legacy and her generosity. Eileen and I have spent a fair amount of time learning about Mary Elizabeth Garrett. I could tell you stories. We were both pleased and humbled to follow in her philanthropic footsteps, and we are so very happy to be here to share the genuinely joyous occasion of installing Dr. Rebecca Stone as the inaugural holder of the Stoddard and O'Neill Professorship in Gynecologic Oncology. I am a baby boomer, born in 1952, which makes me pretty ancient. Television became a new part of American family life in my childhood, and one of the most popular types of programming in the 1960s was medical drama. Daytime soap operas were full of hospital storylines, and primetime shows helped both reinforce and shape public stereotypes of what made a good doctor. Dr. Kildare, Richard Chamberlain is the dreamy singing intern. Ben Casey, with Vince Edwards as the intense, brooding, never smiling neurosurgical resident. But the show I best remember as a kid was Marcus Welby, MD. Starring Robert Young, he of Father Knows Best fame. How could he possibly fail? Marcus Welby was the perfect doctor. He was a general practitioner. He took care of everybody in the family, and he took care of those patients throughout their lives. My dad was a GP in a small town, and he took care of his patients throughout their lives. Marcus Welby had time to listen to and worry about and get to know his patients. His advice was always sage. His ability to comfort and guide was absolute. Any person would want Marcus Welby to be their doctor. There were very few female doctors on any of these programs, but there were nurses. My mother was an RN, so I grew up in that kind of household with the father who was a doctor, the mother who was a nurse, and she was smarter than he was. I don't know if that's true in your family, but all right. And my mother always laughed at the medical shows because she thought the portrayal of the nurses was so short-sighted and so vapid. My mom liked to say that doctors diagnose, but nurses heal. Now, having been a patient in the hospital many times over the past 3 years, and always in the fortunate care of phenomenal nurses here at Hopkins, I finally understand what my mother was talking about. Most of you in attendance today know Becky Stone, or at least you know of her. And if you're lucky enough to know Becky Stone, you probably most likely love Becky Stone. When I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in February of 2023, my wonderful medical oncologist, Dr. Andrew Maynor, referred me to Dr. Stone for a surgical consultation. I was not looking forward to it. Up until then, the only surgery I had ever experienced was a tonsillectomy in 1959. So my concern was she going to be Dr. Kildare or was she going to be Dr. Ben Casey? She turned out instead to be the female Marcus Welby, who just also happened to wield an impressively effective scalpel. There are universal human needs: to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, and she filled all those boxes for me on the very first day we met. She talked about all the important clinical concerns, but she also talked about the quality of life and the inexhaustible possibilities of hope. Jane Fonda likes to say that hope is a form of planning. If you're not hopeful, you've given up. Hope for me has never been necessarily about wishing for a cure, but rather hoping to handle whatever cancer throws at me with a modicum of grace and dignity. In the time I have known Becky Stone, I've come to know her as undeniably brilliant, magnificently skilled, and as gifted and artful in the practice of medicine as any patient could hope to find in their doctor. But as extraordinary as she is as a doctor, don't cry, she's an even better human being. She's passionate in her resolve that her patients never feel alone with their disease. And she has unfailingly kept that promise to me and my family for 3 years. Cancer has given me more than it has ever been able to take away from me. I have had some wild and scary, but also wonderful experiences because of cancer. I've been embraced and fortified by family and friends, and I've met scores of amazing new people who I never would have known if I hadn't been in treatment. Frankly, I wouldn't change a thing. Dr. Stone has helped me find joyful purpose in my cancer. And cancer has helped me find renewed purpose in my life. Becky and I share an appreciation for poetry. So I want to conclude by sharing a very brief Mary Oliver piece on this most joyous of days. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. On behalf of my wife, Eileen, and our son, Quinn, allow me to be the first to say, congratulations, Professor Stone. I have no doubt that Mary Elizabeth Garrett's spirit is somewhere in the cosmos, dancing with joy.
Wow. Karen, it's really hard to follow somebody who speaks from the heart. Thank you so much for your wonderful remarks, and they make clear how fortunate we are to have you and Eileen as benefactors for this professorship. And frankly, and I hesitate to say this in front of a member of the clergy, but I have a confession. This professorship is not just this display of incredible philanthropic generosity, but was born by a conspiracy. A couple of years ago, Karen asked me, why isn't Becky a professor yet? I hemmed and hawed, and I shared that Becky was absolutely deserving. She was deserving several years ago. But for some time, I failed. I couldn't convince her to just get her materials in, to update her CV, to put the stuff in to the committee. And then Karen called me, I think it was like the next day, and said, I have an idea. And I remember Karen and Eileen and Becky and I were going to a lecture across the street at the School of Public Health. It was some New York Times best-selling author about a women's health book. And Karen did the talking, Eileen was right there, and she said, Becky, I have an idea, and Eileen and I want to dedicate a professorship in your name in gynecologic oncology, but on one condition. You've got to get your materials in for promotion, and in 30 days, the deal is up. So Becky finally actually did it. And it was just another demonstration of what happens all the time, that what makes Becky special. She will do things for her patients rather than do things for herself. And she always puts her patients, her colleagues, her family, her friends first. And so now I finally have the distinct pleasure of introducing and bragging about the inaugural recipient of the Stoddard O'Neill Professorship in Gynecologic Oncology, my friend Becky Stone. So now, that was the preface to my remarks, so sit tight. So it's a true honor to stand before you today and celebrate a significant milestone for Dr. Stone and the field of gynecologic oncology. We gather today not only to formally recognize Dr. Stone as the inaugural recipient, but also to celebrate the commitment to women's health and patient care that this professorship represents. Dr. Stone is an extraordinary master clinician, and I see we have some of our learners here in the back, so I'm going to brag about your teacher. She's a master clinician who's demonstrated academic achievement and scholarly accomplishments in research and program building and education and advocacy, and above all, in patient care. Dr. Stone is an internationally recognized leader in gynecologic oncology with expertise in early detection and prevention of ovarian cancer, enhanced recovery after surgery, novel treatments for gestational trophoblastic disease, biomarker development in reproductive cancers, and on and on. Dr. Stone currently serves as the director of the Division of Gynecologic Oncology in the department here at Hopkins, and she has many other roles. She is the co-director of our Fertility Preservation Innovation Center. She's the director of our Enhanced Recovery After Surgery program, not just for the department, not just for the Johns Hopkins Hospital, but for the Johns Hopkins Health System, and she serves as the lead for surgery in the Office of Transformation for Johns Hopkins Health System. Throughout her distinguished career, Dr. Stone has made significant contributions to understanding, preventing, and treating ovarian and gynecologic cancers, and refining surgical practice and reducing surgical harm. She's published over 125 manuscripts with 30 publications cited more than 100 times by her colleagues. She's published in every major journal in her specialty and her subspecialty, and more broad journals like New England Journal of Medicine, The Lancet, the Journal of the American Medical Association. Her contributions to science focus on early detection and prevention of ovarian cancer, PARP inhibitor maintenance in the treatment of ovarian cancer, pharmacodynamic and immune-based biomarkers of therapeutic response in gynecologic cancer, and in the improvement in the performance and the art of surgery. Dr. Stone's research has been sponsored by everybody who's anybody in the field, NIH, NCI, and multiple foundations, including Breakthrough Cancer. Becky is the PI and the driving force and the national face in front of the Breakthrough Cancer supported campaign, Intercepting Cancer, Opportunistic Salpingectomy as a primary prevention strategy. This work has evolved from this discovery made here at Hopkins and at other centers that 80% of serous epithelial cancers actually don't come from the ovary, they come from the fallopian tube. Ovarian cancers have historically been associated with incredibly high morbidity and mortality, as they are most often diagnosed at stage 3 or 4. Now, with our ability to identify mutations, proteins, and precursors of these cancers on the fallopian tube before gross manifestations are seen, the prevention of the most common and aggressive form of ovarian cancer may be prevented with opportunistic salpingectomy. I can go on and on about her academic accomplishments and qualifications for this professorship, but that's not what makes Becky Stone very special. She is the ultimate physician's physician, a shining example of what we admire. In 2023, her peers voted her the Johns Hopkins Hospital Physician of the Year. She's incredibly smart. She's technically outstanding and works determinedly for the benefit of her patients and their families. She is a role model among our learners and colleagues within our and beyond our department. We see in Becky some of the qualities that we aspire to, not just in how we practice, rather how we live. For me, she exhibits things I was taught to value: service before self, excellence in all she does, working tirelessly for the benefit of others, integrity always. She can be counted on to do the right thing, especially when no one is looking. She is a role model that serves as a mentor and a magnet, attracting the next generation of talent to our department and this institution. I'm just looking around the room, and the disciples, Dana Lewis, Ali Froelich, Joy Davis, Pegga Bluestein was here earlier today. I mean, these are all Hopkins students, residents, and fellows who are here and have chosen a career in gynecologic oncology because of Becky. And that's just to name a few, and somebody's going to say, oh, you forgot this one and forgot that one. You guys should know by now when I stand up at a lecture podium, who I see is who I mention. Some may believe I regularly meet with Becky in her office simply because there is a very large, constantly replenished jar of M&Ms in that office. And the truth is that's part of it. I mean, it must have taken quite a gift fund to constantly replenish that supply of M&Ms because it's always full and it's an incredibly large jar. But the real reason I'm there is that I value and respect her opinion on shaping our strategic plans and executing our mission as much as anyone in our department or outside of it. She is not just the best of the best in terms of practicing as a physician. I can count on her to tell me not necessarily what I want to hear, but the truth. She's a special human being, and I'm honored to call her colleague and friend. And I can't believe I haven't got choked up yet and lost it. With the Stoddard O'Neill Professorship, we not only recognize Dr. Stone's remarkable achievements, but also invest in her future endeavors. As has been said, it will undoubtedly elevate her work. Karen, Eileen, thank you, thank you, thank you. Karen, this may be the best conspiracy ever. I mean, to get her to focus and get this thing done and let somebody else recognize her for who she is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So please, Dr. Stone, we are honored to have you in our community, in our department, in our university. So before I get choked up, please join me in celebrating my friend and colleague, Becky Stone, as we honor her today with the Stoddard O'Neill Professorship and welcome her to the
You could stay.
I don't know what the sequence of things is.
Thank you, Andy. Beautifully done. Karen, let me say, I'm sure on behalf of this entire audience, thank you for those beautiful words. Thank you for allowing us a glimpse into your journey. Thank you for allowing Johns Hopkins to help you down that path. And also thank you for sharing quite accurately the story of Mary Elizabeth, because the force of her will and her vision, as you noted, allowed those four guys to do what they did and create this magnificent institution that really has become and is the platform of why Becky is able to do what she does. And that those do tie together beautifully, and I thank you for sharing that, very much so. Endowed professorships, as most of you know, are the highest honor that the School of Medicine can bestow on one of its faculty members. To continue to do what we talked about before, conduct that important research, make those discoveries, translate those into helping patients, and train the next generation of leaders. That's how we lead, and that's how we will continue to lead at this institution. And Becky Stone, you are helping us to do that. So on behalf of the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, I am pleased to present you with this medallion to honor you and your installation as the inaugural Stoddard and O'Neill Professor in Gynecologic Oncology. Hearty congratulations, Becky.
Thank you. I'm like sitting there and I'm like, gosh, why isn't my phone going off? Like no one's texting me, no one's like emailing me. And it's because everyone who does that is here. So I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. And I will say about the M&Ms, the supplier is the one and only Karen and Eileen, of course. And I also heard that while I was on vacation at the end of May and my door was locked, somebody broke into Amanda's office and went all the way around, found the door between my office and Amanda's office, moved a Chinese painting and a couch to get to the M&Ms. So, I'm not going to say who it is, but anyways, all right. So, I find it ironic that today is June 30th. It's the last day of the academic year. And in academic medicine, this day always marks both endings and beginnings. Our students become physicians, and residents become fellows, and fellows become faculty, and faculty retire. And every June 30th reminds us that time is faithfully carrying us all forward. And so it feels really fitting to me that we're all gathered here today, and that I've been thinking a lot about time lately. Not so much the chronological time that's like measured by the hourglass, but the alchemy of time, meaning the mysterious process by which ordinary time becomes something precious. Time in terms of how we spend it and how we give it, how we receive and how we redeem it, how we gamble it, how sometimes we would give anything to rewind it or for it to stand still, how love transforms it, and how as doctors we are sometimes able to create more of it. The number of hours we have together is actually not so large. It's definitely uncertain. To be able to give someone back time that was never in their cards is a tremendous gift. And it's why I became and love being an oncologist. But to bear witness to how this time is spent in birthdays and graduations, dog pets, road trips, is one of the greatest privileges of being a doctor that I will ever know. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I don't have a particularly good sense of time. Just ask my husband when we have to drive to the airport. I've never had a 5-year plan or a carefully mapped career. Out of necessity, my event horizon is rarely longer than 24 hours. I was born in El Paso, Texas, the left-handed first child of a vascular surgeon and an ER nurse, who have now been married for over 50 years. I was never the smartest or the most athletic, and I can't carry a tune to save my life, but I could draw, and that made me happy. My parents taught me to pursue the answer to 3 questions, no matter what the cost. And they were, what brings you joy? What are you good at? And what does the world most need from you? And I've spent my life trying to live at the intersection between these 3 questions, less through art and more through my work as a GYN oncologist, enamored, obsessed really, with the craft of surgery. And years ago, when I was an OBGYN resident, the remarkable GYN oncologist and my mentor, Laurel Rice, offered me a piece of advice that has stayed with me ever since. She simply told me to live like a wolf. She never explained what she meant. I've been trying to figure it out ever since. Maybe she meant be fearless, or maybe fiercely loyal, maybe to protect your pack, maybe to endure long winters without losing your way. I don't know. But I do know this. If someone told me that the world would end 1 year from now, I would still choose this life. I would still wake up absurdly early. I would still operate all day. I would still sit with my patients during the hardest times. Because this work here with all of you is where I have found purpose and a home for my soul. It's where I've encountered the sacred. It's where I've witnessed the astonishing courage and resilience of others. It's where I learned most personally that suffering and meaning can occupy the same space. And it's where I discovered that the people I love and admire most all have one thing in common. You've all taught me about the alchemy of time. My dad. My dad taught me that purpose is not something you discover. It is born out in all the early morning twilight moments when most people fall back asleep. And then you practice it like a religion. My mother taught me that love is measured in attention, not in time. She raised my heart to know that love is expressed through ordinary rituals repeated over a lifetime. This is tradition, and it is one of the most meaningful ways to experience and savor time. My sister Heather is a social worker. She's here today. And she taught me something that I will never truly understand because I've not been a parent myself. She's raised 4 extraordinary children, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, she also made sure that they knew me. And that may seem a small thing, but it isn't. Time is love made visible. Every moment she has spent helping them know me is one she has tenderly given to me. That is an extraordinary gift. My brother was an attorney, and he taught me about grief, or perhaps his death taught me what grief really is. As an oncologist, I thought I understood grief. I didn't. I understood loss. But grief, that's entirely something else. There is nothing that changes your relationship with time more than grief. But grief exists because of the disconnect between love and time, and there's no changing that. My husband, Chris, his dedication to civic duty has shown me what it means to care about and to invest in people whose future you may never personally see. He has also taught me that unconditional love is the greatest investment that we can ever choose. Looking back, I realize how much of my life and how much time I might have wasted trying to be someone else. Someone a little less messy, less impulsive, definitely a better driver. A million things my maladaptive perfectionism reminds me that I'm not every day. Instead, he loves me exactly as I am. And there is an extraordinary freedom in being loved without first having to become worthy of it. Andy Satin, you taught me one of the most important life lessons about time, that sometimes the best course of action is to proceed until apprehended. And I love when you say that. Best piece of advice. After all, like, who has permission, who has time to ask for permission for everything, right? You've taught me that life is too short to wait for perfect certainty. Some opportunities have an expiration date, and sometimes the greatest risk is waiting too long. Coming from a Navy officer and MFM, I suspect this wisdom isn't about breaking rules or being reckless. It's about the opposite. It's about understanding that thoughtful action often matters more than perfect information, and that there's forgiveness. Bob Sikorsky is retiring today, and I'm grateful to come to know Bob in many different ways over the years. I know him as the greatest anesthesiologist to ever walk into my life, my emergency contact, my friend, and safe harbor. A few years ago, one of my youngest patients died suddenly from a pulmonary embolism. I spent the hour between 2 cases with her devastated family. And when I returned, I was a sea of despair. You found me and you sat with me for a long time, and you never said anything. When I finally stood up, you simply nodded, handed me a glass of water, and walked me back into the operating room. And I've thought about that glass of water many times over the years. And at the time, it seemed like such a small gesture. And now I realize it was an act of quiet rescue. Amy Espino, Sharon Thompson, Kathy Ione, Deb Hobson, you protect me fiercely. You bless me with damage control. Most days, this job is an impossible escape room, But where I'm lost, you are there, and you always get us out. The four of you and every person here has shaped my understanding of what it means to love another human well, and what we owe each other while we're here. It all comes down to how faithfully we show up for one another when it matters most. And I have come to believe that that is what greatness really is, not achievement or brilliance or titles, but some version of coming back with water. Kim and Phyllis, you two have the unique gift of turning water into champagne. Some of my best memories are from being on the receiving end of that at the end of an impossibly long week. Over the years, you've enabled my particular brand of craziness in countless selfless ways. Loving our dog when I don't have the luxury of coming home, leaving dinner on my doorstep, racing me to the airport 30 minutes before boarding, and showing up on days when I'm barely holding on. You give me time to catch my breath. Best friends do that. They also listen to your problems and then they roll up their sleeves to help you solve them. And the best friends are super geniuses, like Angie and Pam and Sarah. You three are so generous in helping me to see the world differently. It is always such a huge relief. Through you, I've come to understand friendship as one of the ways we redeem time. Eileen and Karen, I've thought a great deal about what I wanted to say to the two people whose extraordinary generosity made today possible. We made it. And just like Mary Elizabeth Garrett, you have an extraordinary gift of recognizing what is needed, especially the things someone like me would never dream of asking for, and then somehow you made them all possible. It's a quantum leap kind of generosity that is measured in generations instead of in years. Eileen, you are quite literally the queen of discovery. Your audacity and creativity is so boundless, you can get a sweaty, middle-aged dude across the Grand Canyon on a tightrope. I would follow you anywhere, with that one exception. And long before any of this, you entrusted me with the care of the person you love most. And from that moment on, I was all in. Your trust remains one of the greatest honors of my career. Karen, I will never forget the day we met. I was completely unaware that you would come to mean so much to me. On that day, you believed you were the one who needed saving, but it was me. 3 years ago today, you recovered from a 12-hour cancer operation in my hands, one that I would later learn you never expected to survive. In the time that followed, our relationship surpassed the traditional exchange of a doctor and patient. It became a friendship built on mutual love of the many enigmatic, mystical, and beautiful parts of life. I have come to know and to be humbled by you as one of my greatest teachers. You have changed the way that I experience time. You taught me that creating time and inhabiting time are not the same thing. While inhabiting time is much like being a foreigner in a foreign land to me, I have at least learned that inhabiting time means lingering over poetry and books, ideas and conversations whose only purpose is understanding another human being. You remind me that my own life is not meant to be lived only in service of my patients, but also in the company of friends, who can be one and the same. And you have this transcendent ability to find unexpected gifts in suffering, not because cancer is a gift, but because you refuse to let it have the final word. You challenge my intuition, expand my imagination, and have filled the box of letters in my office in the way only an English professor with your talent for the written word could. For this and so many other reasons, I am eternally grateful. So I'll leave you with this promise, the promise that out beyond the field of what is possible and impossible, I will always find you.
just get to follow the people who speak from their heart. Thank you, Becky, for those words, and thanks to you for all you do. Karen, Eileen, thank you so much for what you've done. On behalf of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics, thank you all for being here and celebrating the inaugural Stoddard O'Neill Professor. And I think there's going to be a pretty good party tonight. Thank you guys for coming. It's a great Hopkins Day. It's a great day for our department. It's a great day for the university. That's all, folks.